entities, possessions, parasitic attachments, generational trauma, call it what you want to call it, but I'm here to have a conversation with you that is maybe not so enjoyable, but definitely needs to happen. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sitara Faye. I have been a practicing professional psychic medium since 2012, right after and also during getting my degree in psychology. When I was getting my degree in psychology, I realized that clinical psychology, was completely missing the mark with what they called abnormal psychology, narcissism, borderline personality disorder, bipolar. There's so many different kinds, right? But what I was able to see was that this was clearly a spiritual issue. This was clearly a spiritual ailment. So before I ended up getting my degree, I started taking classes at a psychic institute. This is something that I knew was in my bloodline and something that I completely rejected until it got to the point where, one, my curiosity started opening up, and two, I really needed to figure out what was going on with me. I have always been a deeply feeling human being. I've always been able to oftentimes see things in the field that most other people have not been able to see. And this has been very much a blessing and also very much a challenge, not something I would ever call a curse. But ultimately, I'm here to speak with you today about something that has just been absolutely going buck wild in the last couple of years. I'm sure you're feeling it too, which is why I'm sure you're here watching this video with me. I have been doing entity extractions. I think the first one that I cleared from myself was when I was 22 years old. You can check out my video. It's called Drunk Spirituality here on YouTube, where I talked a lot deeper as to what was going on with me and how there were certain experiences in me clearing these entities that had basically taken home within my body, that I was hosting them, that would basically take over my body when I was drinking. When I was young, I had experienced some traumas. And so when I was very young, 13, 14, was when I started drinking. And I started drinking because it was the first thing that I could find that would numb the pain that I had been carrying through my childhood. Well, being a very sensitive human being, that easily was the most detrimental thing I ever could have done. And so when I started learning to clear these entities and learning that these entities are even actually a thing, what I started noticing was that as soon as I started clearing them out, my handwriting would change. I would have clothes in my closet I couldn't wear anymore. These were things that I associated with and thought were me. I thought it was me. I thought it was part of my personality, but it wasn't. It was an external parasitic attachment that had gotten in my field of consciousness. So that was a very, very long time ago. And ever since then, I have dedicated my life to doing the psychic work instead of going down the route of being a clinical psychologist, simply because of this particular thing that I noticed. So the reason that I'm creating this video here with you today is because I'm sure you've noticed in the past couple of years, things have gotten really quite crazy. The quantum field, also known as the collective unconscious, has gotten extremely dark in a lot of ways. Well, let's say it's been tainted. There are black magic sigils all over media. One of the things that I recognize or believe with black magic is that if you don't know what it is, right? Because when we were young, we were all told not to go in that direction. Don't do those things. You'll get burned at the stake. It was very subliminal, but it was there when, of course, we were learning about the Salem witch trials. And one of the things that's interesting, right, is that if you don't know what it is, you don't know how to identify it. Which basically means that there's a lot of banking on the naivety and lack of own personal research to identify and see how these things are actually influencing a majority of humanity on a mass scale. So this is the first video of a series that I'm going to be doing I host a 3-day masterclass. It's called the Entity Clearing Masterclass. We hosted it last year in September, and I decided to do it this year in October. So if you were watching this video before October 20th, please go ahead and check out the link in the description below if you are feeling called to journey with us. And if you're watching it after that date, no worries, the recordings will be available. So ultimately, I have a pretty wild gift that allows me to traverse the realms of light in speaking light codes and communicating with angels, activating people to their wings, activating soul purpose, DNA codes that are multi-dimensional across timelines and dimensions. It's pretty extraordinary. And the really kind of challenging side of that is that it also opens me to the entire field. That doesn't just mean that I traverse into the area of light. It also means that I traverse into the area of dark. And the reason that I'm bringing that up is because, one, I believe in my life with some of the things that I shared with you, I had to learn to be with and walk in the codes of dark before I was able to actually stabilize, integrate, and really be able to hold a light in a very powerful way, to be able to help remind you of your own sovereignty and to help remind you of your own personal choice of how you want the rest of your life, and even more in the more immediate future, the next few years, to be. Because I think, as we know, as I'm recording this video, there are a lot of things that are going on politically. There's a lot of things going on globally that I think we know is going to get a little bit more rambunctious, to say it lightly. And so what's really important right now is that we have to acknowledge that there is a spiritual war going on. I know a lot of people want to say, well, light and dark, they are all one and the same, and it's a beautiful thing, and that's fine. Light and dark are like the yin and yang. It is very important to know the balance within ourselves, for sure. Then there is also a difference between what is good and what is evil. And so dark inherently does not cause harm. Dark energy is not hurtful. It is not malicious. It does not have malintent. Evil has malintent. It is what hurts people. It is what causes harm. It is what is like the action of the shadow. So what I believe is important is that we learn to not fear the dark. I'm not talking about being afraid of being hurt. What I'm talking about is actually acknowledging that there is a depth and a richness and a reward when we are able to meet those deepest and darkest corners within our own consciousness, within our own ecosystem, that actually allows us to be immune to these types of parasitic attachments. That's kind of the interesting thing about it. The reason I say that is because these parasitic attachments, they attach onto us by having access to a focal point. And that focal point is usually a experience of trauma. It is something that is passed down through the generational line. It can be a shadow quality that is in your blind spot that you have been unwilling to face or acknowledge within yourself. It can show up in several different ways. And so what I want to address with this is that it doesn't necessarily matter if we're, interviewing these entities. Sometimes they do have things to teach us before we send them on their way. Sometimes they really don't want to go, because if you are hosting an entity, it's a bit of a different conversation than if you simply have an attachment into your field from someone else that is hosting an entity. You usually see this with narcissism. If a person is a narcissist, they usually will be hosting an entity that has tentacle-like limbs. I don't know what you would call it, tentacles that plug into the subconscious of a human being, and ultimately can be very maddening and be very draining. And if you've ever been in a narcissistic relationship, love relationship or otherwise, you know how maddening and challenging it can be to get out of it and unravel it. And ultimately, the beauty, the silver lining of this is that it will fortify a strength inside of you. It will fortify a sovereignty inside of you. And it will also fortify a level of compassion within you, because ultimately, to be fully free of these things, we have to be able to compassionately forgive. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing to do. And most people don't want to, especially when it comes to narcissistic abuse, because of how absolutely horrific it can be. And so it's not to say we must forgive to allow these people to stay in our lives. That's not it at all. But it is rather letting go of the tug of war rope. That the resistance to the forgiveness is actually continuing to maintain that cord of attachment. And ultimately, what we want to do is we want to evoke sovereignty. We want to evoke that clarity. We want to evoke the opportunity where you actually get to experience your life with a bit of a lightness. And not just a bit of a lightness, an actually deeply embodied lightness, deeply embodied, integrated wholeness. That you are deserving of peace. No matter what it is that has taken place in your life, you are deserving of peace. And you are also deserving of sovereignty in the full embodiment of your light. So if this is something, again, that sounds interesting to you, please do go ahead and check out the link in the description below. You can go ahead and follow me also on Instagram at sitara.speaks. And I will look very forward to seeing you in the next part of this series, and hopefully live with us on October 20th.